For the gardener and homesteader, late summer, early fall is a special time of year that can feel very abundant and exciting in the kitchen to use all of the beautiful things. So I'm going to take you along in my kitchen as I'm making some of those farm to table foods. Luke is the gardener in the family, and he planted a lot of potatoes and onions this year, and it's been so enjoyable just having such basic aspects of a meal, the foundational aspects in a lot of ways for our family. We use so many potatoes and onions, all be so fresh and from the garden. So many things I've been making lately, I've said, this is entirely from the garden, and we really all enjoy that. Today, I am making some ricotta cheese to go with the meal. Now, this milk is not from our farm, as we no longer have a dairy cow. I've shared about that on here before and on the podcast, but we currently don't have a dairy cow. We do plan to have a dairy cow again in the future. But at this current time, I have a local farm where I get milk every single week. We've done this long before we had a dairy cow. I'd say 15 years ago, we started sourcing raw milk from a local farm. Now, since then, we've moved, and there's been dairies that have come and have gone, people who have started them up, people who no longer do them, but I've always found a way to source fresh milk, and that has been such a blessing for our family to have such a high quality staple ingredient, a regular source of that. If you want to make ricotta cheese, I do have the process for that over on farmhouseonboone.com. You can even print the recipe out over there. I'm also grabbing some kale and herbs from the garden. We have rosemary and thyme. All the kids love to pick and eat basil directly from the garden. I see them running around with green like coming out of their mouths, and it's basil. They all love the basil. I got some potatoes going in the Instant Pot, just a really quick way to cook them. I'm making gnocchi today, and normally I will just bake them in the oven, but it is still summer. It's still pretty warm, and so I don't always want to run the oven. Also, it's faster to run it in the Instant Pot just to cook the potatoes that way. And I also wanted to cook chicken in there. So as soon as I take the potatoes out, once they're nice and soft, I'm adding some boneless, skinless chicken breasts to that pot. Now, this is also farm to table because my sister raises beef and chicken and pork, and we're able to source all of that from her. So it's a collaborative effort. It's not all our farm, but as much as possible, I try to make things that are from a local farm, fresh, wonderful, beautiful ingredients. Now, this einkorn gnocchi recipe is also over on farmhouseonboone.com. I use this recipe repeatedly in my kitchen. It consists of potatoes, eggs, ricotta cheese, einkorn flour. If you aren't familiar, einkorn flour is an ancient grain, so it's easier for the body to digest. This is a quick recipe, not a sourdough one, so I like to use einkorn in cases like that. You can put gnocchi in soups all fall and winter long. Today, I'm just making this creamy chicken and gnocchi soup. I know I sound like a broken record, but I do like to direct you over to farmhouseonboone.com because that is where you can get all of the amounts and print all of these recipes off. So this creamy chicken soup is over there as well. I have bone broth going on the back of the stove. I try to keep it going pretty regularly and add more bones as we're using them throughout the week. Allow it to keep cooking and simmering. And then usually after 4 or 5 days, I strain it all off and use up that broth and then start again. If you want to peek into how the flow in my kitchen works, I did do a video recently where I shared, I think the title is called Don't Meal Plan. So this is in August of 2024. You can find that video. And I kind of just show you how the flow works in my kitchen, how I do the perpetual bone broth pot, and try to work in a natural way that doesn't require me to plan out every move, yet still have from scratch meals. Now, the recipe for this creamy chicken gnocchi soup does call for spinach, but we have kale. And so everything is so adaptable. Use what you have. My daughter loves making pies, and we use so many egg yolks in other things, like ice cream, for example. And so we end up with a whole bunch of egg whites. So today she's making what she calls a mile-high pie full of meringue. Great way to get some protein. Honestly, I think we could just make up toasted meringue and not even put a pie beneath it. Of course, fresh eggs are the most abundant and foundational farm to table ingredient around here. We love being able to grow food in our own garden and source fresh foods from local farmers as much as possible. One way that we fill in a lot of the gaps and stock our pantry is with Thrive Market, which happens to be the sponsor of today's video. Thrive Market is an online grocery store. They have quality organic products, things like einkorn flour, herbs and spices. I'll even get granola and snacks on there that is especially helpful this time of year as we're going back to homeschool co-op. We do packed lunches, so having things at the ready for that have quality ingredients and for a better price than I can find locally is really helpful. Thrive Market's website allows you to sort by dietary preference. So if you are paleo, dairy-free, gluten-free, you can make sure to only see the things that fit in with what you would want, and that makes the shopping experience a lot easier. For me, I've been ordering from Thrive Market for so long now that when I get on, Thrive Market will kind of just recommend to me the things that I'll most likely want to add to my cart. It makes it really fast, and orders over $49 ship free. So it's just a very convenient way to fill my pantry with quality items that I know our family will use and love. I live in a small town, and our grocery store just doesn't have all of the things that I want for recipes, certain spices, certain things that I want an organic option. I can't find locally, and if I can, it's usually pretty expensive, and Thrive Market really helps to meet that need for me. Thrive Market is offering Farmhouse On Boone viewers 30% off your first order plus a free gift worth up to $60 by using my link, thrivemarket.com/Farmhouse On Boone. It'll also be linked in the description box below. Again, thank you so much, Thrive Market, for sponsoring today's video. I'm always looking for ways to use ground beef because we tend to fall back on tacos and spaghetti over and over again with ground beef. But we also do get a lot of it because we order half a cow at a time, and a lot of that ends up in ground beef. Plus, it's so easy to thaw. I can throw it in some hot water to thaw it quickly. It thaws even fast in the refrigerator, which is preferable. And so we end up doing a lot of our butcher order in ground beef. And one way I love using it is in a ground beef pot pie. So this is a lot like a chicken pot pie, except for with ground beef. Now, there is, of course, a recipe on farmhouseonboone.com, but I am taking a few liberties with that recipe today to place an emphasis on things that we currently have an abundance of. So, of course, some of the things are from the grocery store, like the celery and the carrots, but I'm doing a lot of peppers because we have an abundance of peppers from the garden, and of course potatoes. So normally the recipe calls for peas. I just took the peas out, added a whole bunch of onions and peppers and potatoes because that is what we grew so much of. And then I'm making my sourdough pie crust, which you can make really far in advance and keep in the refrigerator. It'll get a little bit more sour as it sits. We do that all the time because my daughter's always making pies. I love to make pot pies, so it's never a bad idea to have a few sitting in the refrigerator, and they have the gut health benefits the longer that they sit once you add the sourdough starter. It's good to put it in the refrigerator to let it cool a bit before rolling out if you do want to use it instantly. Again, I'm reaching for my bone broth. As it sits, it gets a little bit more health benefits. The great thing about a pot pie is you don't necessarily have to have a recipe. You're just trying to create a gravy, in a sense, around meat and vegetable mixture. So whatever meat that is, whatever vegetable that is, adding a little bit of flour to the fat in that. So you saute that, you have the beef or whatever the fat is, adding some flour to soak up that, and then adding in broth and cream to create sort of a gravy. I used this just yesterday. I had some family over and we decided to make some chicken pot pies. And instead of looking at a recipe, I just kind of took what we had because we didn't have all the ingredients that the recipe called for, but we did have broth. We had lots of vegetables, we had cream, and you're just adding broth and cream and flour to a veggie meat mixture until it's thick and it tastes good. Salt to taste, pepper to taste, taste along the way. Yes, if you're having guests, use a different spoon each time, but this is how I love to cook in my kitchen. It ends up yielding the best results and also allows me to really enjoy being in the kitchen because I'm not trying to follow something to the letter. I'm just kind of tasting and thickening as needed and adding a bit more liquid if it's too thick, and just really enjoying the process and then putting that combo into a pie crust. That just makes it taste even more delicious and delectable. We did not grow sweet potatoes this year, but I have so many. We're finally getting through the last of them from my uncle's garden from last year that they passed on to us, and they're still lasting and holding strong. And again, so many onions we're trying to use up. Not really use up, because we love onions, and also I know for sure that we'll use them before they go bad. One of my favorite meals that I started making many years ago, because who doesn't love a good, easy sheet pan dinner, is a maple roasted chicken, sweet potato, apple, onion combo. So I'm using the chicken breast again just because I really stocked up the other day when I was at my sister's. This does taste better with chicken that has the skin and the bone. I prefer to use chicken thighs, but this still will totally work. I am just cutting everything kind of big chunks, adding olive oil and maple syrup, salt. I'll also top it with some fresh thyme and sage, whatever herbs I can find in the garden. One thing that I have been keeping on hand is deviled eggs, because I'll have kids that'll say they're hungry before bed. And I always tell them that if you're hungry enough for an egg or cheese, then you're hungry enough, and that's fine. Something easy that I can just hand them. They oftentimes will go for cheese, but I do try to keep deviled eggs on hand because we have so many chickens. I heard a tip recently that if you add the eggs to already boiling water, that they'll peel a lot easier. So I've been trying that lately. One thing you have to be careful when using that method is that they crack really, really easily, especially if they're cold. The cold egg hitting that hot water, I find that they'll crack. It's okay if that happens. Your water will, of course, have some cooked egg white in it, but I do prefer them not to crack, of course. And so I try to ease them in real gently with a slotted spoon. And then I make my own homemade mayo, mash them with mustard and some salt, and that's good enough. Now, homemade mayo is another one of those really simple things that once you have it down, you don't have to measure. So I'll just crack an egg in, something acidic, either lemon or mustard, either one will work, some salt, and then top it with about a cup of oil. One thing cool about using half pint wide mouth jars in your kitchen, we use them for drinking glasses, so they're always very available, is they have the measurements on the side. So you don't need to get out a separate measuring cup to add it to the jar. Just pour that avocado oil in. You can also do really any oil, but the most neutral tasting, in my opinion, is avocado oil. And then an immersion blender makes really short work of mayo. We always have mayo because we like to use it for the base for salad dressings too. My favorite salad dressing to do is taking homemade mayo, adding mustard and honey and some salt and lemon juice, and making a honey mustard. Now, if we don't have lemon juice, which we did this just yesterday, we did honey mustard without the lemon juice. I'll just add the rest of the ingredients, kind of stir it up and taste as I go, but that makes for a simple salad dressing to dress those beautiful late summer greens that we have in our fall garden. I will leave links in the description box below for all of these recipes. Everything I'm making today is on farmhousehumboon.com. I do also want to remind you that if you are more of the meal planning type, which this could just be where you are in your homemaking journey. So like my younger sister, she loves having recipes and a meal plan because with her small family, she has one child so far. She said that she can easily overbuy and really waste if she doesn't have a detailed plan. She's also a newer cook. And so for her, it's way more helpful to have a plan than it is for me. So I do have a fall meal plan. It has the grocery list for everything you'll need, and it has 4 weeks of dinners, all fall themed. So with the beautiful ingredients that are available right now, you can get that at bit.ly/farmhouse fall meal plan, bit.ly/farmhouse fall meal plan, all one word, all lowercase. I'll also leave it linked down below. So this that I'm making today is beef carnitas, which I am making in the Instant Pot. I seared a beef roast on both sides in the Instant Pot and then added some broth to that, as well as cumin, chili powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. Let that cook for about an hour till it was tender. And then I sauteed a lot of my peppers and onions and served it with tortillas, sour cream, cheese, sauerkraut. I had some feta in the refrigerator, some hot sauce. Perfect way to use up all of the onions and peppers that we're getting. And then the sourdough pie crust recipe comes out again for a galette. Now, a galette is sort of a free-form pie. We like to do this savory. I make the kids a very easy to like one with ricotta cheese, sausage, and shredded mozzarella. And I also like to make one with goat cheese and thinly sliced sweet potatoes, some sauteed onions, fresh herbs from the garden. Now this day we had a whole bunch of leftovers from when we invited over some people. So I just kind of needed a few things to fill in the gaps, which is a really great time to make a recipe like this. It is such a special treat. There's a kitty